The judgment chamber stretched 3 kilometers across, its crystalline walls reaching toward a dome that displayed 17,000 star systems in real time. Ambassador Marcus Webb stood in a column of white light at the center, surrounded by tiered galleries that spiraled upward like the inside of a massive shell. 412 species watched him from their seats, their combined breathing creating a sound like distant ocean waves. Marcus kept his hands behind his back, his uniform pressed and perfect despite the long journey through hyperspace. Around him, holographic displays flickered to life. Images of Earth, human cities, military bases, research facilities. They were showing evidence against him got high. Arbiter Thelvon raised one of 7 long appendages. The serpentine creature, coiled around a throne of living metal that floated above the chamber floor. Silence fell instantly. Species designation, human. Homeworld, Earth. Sol system, Orion Arm. The voice filled every corner through translation devices. You stand before the Unified Assembly accused of violations against Galactic Statute 771. Unregulated technological acceleration. Marcus felt his jaw tighten. He had been told this was a diplomatic summit, a chance for humanity to formally join the galactic community after their first, faster-than-light journey 18 months ago. It was a trial. The penalty, Thelvon continued, multiple eyes fixing on Marcus, is planetary quarantine. Indefinite. Your species will remain in your home system until the Council decides you are manageable. Whispers rippled through the galleries. Several representatives leaned forward. Marcus could not read their alien expressions. However, the Arbiter's voice dropped lower, given the severity of your violations, several member species have requested a more permanent solution. The holographic display changed. Earth appeared, blue and green and beautiful, rotating slowly. Then a red targeting symbol appeared over it. Extinction protocol, Thelvon said. Complete sterilization of your homeworld. Marcus felt his heart stop. 9 billion people. Everyone he had ever known. His daughter. You may speak in your defense, the Arbiter said. But in 12,000 years, no species facing the extinction protocol has ever convinced this council to show mercy. Marcus looked up at the vast chamber, at hundreds of alien species holding his world's fate in their claws and tentacles. He thought of his daughter back on Earth, probably asleep, dreaming of stars she would never reach. Then slowly, Marcus Webb smiled. 1 cycle, he said quietly. That should be more than enough. 6 months earlier, Observer Krillmouth sat in a hidden monitoring station at the edge of the Sol system. The cloaked facility had watched Earth for 200 years. Krillmouth had been assigned to Earth Watch for 40 standard years. His insectoid body trembled as he compiled his annual report. Something was very wrong. When he first joined Earthwatch, humans were experimenting with nuclear fission. A promising development, nothing unusual. Most species discovered atomic energy around their 4,000th year of civilization. Humans were following the standard path, but they did not stop. Krillmouth's mandibles clicked nervously as he reviewed the data. In just 200 years, humans had jumped from primitive engines to quantum computing, from chemical rockets to theoretical faster-than-light travel. They had cracked their own genetic code and were already editing it. No species in recorded history had ever advanced this quickly. Sub-Commander Yanara arrived 3 days later. The reptilian officer from the Dominion of Scales had been sent to verify the report. She was skeptical. The Dominion had conquered 70 systems and never encountered anything truly threatening from younger races. Show me, she demanded. Krillmouth walked her through the evidence. Humans had developed weapons of terrible destruction, multiple times. And instead of destroying themselves, as most aggressive species did, they had survived every crisis. Cuban Missile Standoff, the Cold War, climate collapse, Each time they stood at the edge of extinction, they pulled back, adapted, grew stronger. They learn from their near-deaths, Krillmoth explained. Each catastrophe makes them more resilient. Yenara's scales rippled with what might have been unease. Many species develop weapons. Many survive. Not like this, Krillmoth said. He pulled up the cultural analysis. Human art, human stories, human dreams. Yenara leaned closer to the displays. What she saw made her blood run cold. Humans were obsessed with reaching the stars. Not for resources, not for expansion. Because they believed it was their destiny. They had been writing stories about interstellar travel for centuries, dreaming of it, preparing their entire species psychologically before they even had the technology. They are not stumbling toward space travel, Krillmoth said quietly. They are sprinting toward it. They have been preparing for this moment for generations. Yenara studied the data in silence. Finally, she spoke. What do you recommend? Containment. Immediately. Before they achieve faster-than-light capability. Director Pollux received their report in his orbital station above a gas giant. The ancient gaseous being had overseen primitive species monitoring for the Galactic Council for thousands of years. He had watched species rise and fall like waves on a shore. He read the report 3 times now. Then he convened an emergency session with the Council's inner circle. The holographic conference room, filled with representatives from the major powers. The Vethany Collective, the Dominion of Scales, the Equilibrium Pact. Others, Pollux presented the findings. The room fell silent. Containment protocols must be enacted immediately, a Vethany delegate said, before they develop FTL travel. Agreed, said a representative from the Equilibrium Pact. Once a species achieves faster-than-light capability, intervention becomes exponentially more difficult. Pollux nodded slowly. I will recommend immediate quarantine measures. The humans will be confined to their system until such time as an alarm screamed through the station. Every screen flashed red. Pollux pulled up the sensor data, his gaseous form flickering rapidly. A ship had been detected at the edge of the Sol system. A human ship. It had just completed a successful faster-than-light jump. They were too late. The conference room erupted in chaos. Delegates shouted over each other. Some demanded immediate military action. Others called for diplomatic containment. A few simply stared at the data in stunned silence. Pollux watched the human ship on his display. It was small, primitive by galactic standards. But it had crossed the threshold that separated confined species from galactic citizens. Send word to the full council, Pollux said, his voice cutting through the noise. Tell them we have a crisis. Schedule an emergency assembly. He paused, looking at the small blue world on his screen. And send an invitation to Earth. Tell them the Galactic Council wishes to welcome them to the interstellar community. A Vethany delegate turned to him. You mean to bring them to the council chambers? To reveal ourselves? They will discover us eventually, Pollux said. Better to control the circumstances. Better to judge them now, while we still can. On Earth, Commander Diana Reyes stepped out of her ship to thunderous applause. She had just made history. The first human to travel faster than light. She waved to the cameras, grinning. She had no idea that in the darkness between stars, ancient powers had begun to move, or that they were afraid. The great library hung in space like a crystalline moon, larger than most planets. It contained the complete history of every species the galaxy had ever known, including the ones that no longer existed. Archivist Nullen moved through the endless corridors of data, his crystalline body refracting light into rainbow patterns. He had served the library for 3,000 years. Today, he had received an unusual assignment. Compile a complete technological history of humanity for Council Review. It should have been straightforward. The library contained detailed records of every primitive species. But as Mellon began his research, he discovered gaps. Entire sections classified beyond his clearance level. All the gaps corresponded to the same thing: moments when humans demonstrated abilities that should have been impossible. He worked for 3 weeks, growing more disturbed each day. Finally, he brought his concerns to someone he trusted. Counselor Dren Voss listened to Mellon's report in his private chambers. The 4-armed humanoid had long harbored doubts about how the Council treated emerging species. When Mellon finished speaking, Dren sat in silence for several minutes. "You are certain these records have been deliberately suppressed?" Dren asked. "Certain," Mellon said. "Someone does not want the full story of humanity known." Dren leaned back in his chair. "Then we must uncover that story." Before the trial, they began an unauthorized investigation. Dren used his council access to unlock restricted files. What they found changed everything. The Galactic Council had been tracking humanity since before humans discovered fire. They had identified Earth as a high-yield cognitive environment, a world whose evolutionary pressures produced unusually adaptive intelligence. Most species were allowed thousands of years to develop naturally. Humanity was never given that time. The Council had been actively suppressing human development. "Look at this," Mellon said, pulling up incident reports. Crashed ships that humans attributed to weather phenomena. They were containment probes designed to prevent early exposure to advanced technology. Dren scrolled through more files. Scientists who disappeared. Not accidents, extractions. The Council took them to prevent breakthrough discoveries. Entire lines of research sabotaged, Mellon added. Cold fusion, room temperature superconductors, advanced materials. Every time humans got close, the Council intervened. And still, humanity kept advancing. Dren stood and paced his chambers. They are not just developing quickly. They are developing despite interference. Every obstacle placed before them, they overcome. Every technology stolen, they reinvent. Mellon's crystalline form dimmed. There is more. I found references to something called the Extinction Protocol. But those files are sealed, even from Council members. Dren's forearms tensed. I know someone who could access those files. But it is dangerous. They made their way to the deepest levels of the library, where few were permitted. At the core sat the curator, a mysterious artificial intelligence of unknown origin. It managed the library's most restricted sections. Why do you seek forbidden knowledge? The curator's voice echoed from everywhere and nowhere. Because the Council is preparing to judge humanity, Dren said. And I suspect they are hiding the truth about similar judgments. The curator was silent for a long moment. Then displays appeared around them, showing files marked with red warning symbols. What Dren and Mellon saw made them understand the full horror. The Galactic Council had invoked the Extinction Protocol before. Many times. Any species showing signs of becoming a destabilizing element was quietly eliminated. The records showed thousands of species, wiped from existence before they could challenge the established order. The Council does not fear what humanity is, Mellon whispered. They fear what humanity could become. Not just the Council, the curator said. Look closer. More files appeared. Intelligence reports, diplomatic communications, military assessments. Dozens of species had filed complaints about humanity, not because humans had harmed them, because humans were advancing too quickly, growing too strong, disrupting the careful balance of power that had held for millennia. They see humanity as a threat to stability, Dren said. No, the curator replied. They see humanity as a threat to their control. The current powers have ruled for 12,000 years. They maintain order through fear and suppression. Any species that could challenge them must be destroyed. The curator paused. Then it said something that made Dren's blood run cold. There is a prophecy, written into my foundational code by my creators, whose identity is lost to time. It speaks of a species from a young star in the spiral arm, a species that would unite the galaxy or tear it apart. The displays shifted, showing automated alerts, thousands of them stretching back 200 years. Every single alert traced to Earth. The prophecy has been triggering warnings since humans first split the atom, the curator said. The Council has known about humanity's potential for centuries. They have been preparing for this moment. The trial is not about justice. It is about survival. The Council's survival. Dren felt his resolve harden. I must warn them. Before the trial, humanity must know what they face. You will be branded a traitor, Melon said. Then I will be a traitor who did the right thing. Dren began composing a message to send to Earth. He worked quickly, knowing time was short. The trial would begin in 6 weeks. Humanity needed to prepare. He was halfway through encoding the transmission when alarms blared throughout the library. Red lights flashed. Doors sealed. Security protocols activated. Someone has betrayed us, Melon said. Through the transparent walls, they saw Council security forces approaching. Hundreds of armed guards, moving with military precision. Melon turned to Dren. Go. You must reach them before the trial. You must tell them everything. I cannot leave you, Dren protested. Melon's crystalline body began to glow brighter. I have lived 3,000 years. It is enough. But humanity deserves a chance to live. Go. Now. Dren ran toward the emergency launch bays. Behind him, he heard the sounds of guards breaking through the library's doors. He heard Melon's voice, calm and clear, telling the guards they had no authority here. Then he heard the sound of a crystal shattering. Dren reached an escape pod and launched into the void. As the pod accelerated away from the library, he looked back. Through the viewing port, he saw shards of crystal floating in space, not all that remained of Archivist Melon. The Council would kill to protect its secrets. They had done it before. They would do it again. And in 6 weeks, they planned to kill 9 billion more. But Dren had the data. He had the evidence. And he had a destination. Earth. The small blue world appeared on his navigation display. Dren plotted a course that would take him through border territories, avoiding Council patrols. He thought of Melon's sacrifice, of the thousands of species erased from history, of the prophecy that had been hidden for so long. Humanity did not know they were special. They did not know the galaxy had been waiting for them, fearing them, but they would learn. Dren engaged the pod's faster-than-light drive and disappeared into hyperspace, carrying secrets that could save a species or doom the galaxy. The Council would hunt him. He would be marked for death. But some things were worth dying for. Freedom was one of them. The message arrived at United Nations headquarters on a Tuesday morning. An alien transmission, decoded by the linguistics team that had been formed after the first FTL flight. The Galactic Council extends an invitation to humanity. You are welcome to attend a diplomatic summit at the Council chambers. A vessel will arrive to transport your representative in 6 weeks. The world celebrated. Social media exploded with joy. News channels ran constant coverage. Humanity was not alone. The universe had opened its arms to welcome them. Only a handful of people knew the truth. Marcus Webb sat in a secure briefing room deep beneath UN headquarters. Former military intelligence officer, now selected as humanity's ambassador to the stars. Around the table sat the crisis team. Admiral Nora Blackwood, head of the newly formed Space Defense Initiative. Dr. Helen Park, leading xenolinguistics expert. General Thomas Rivera, strategic planning. 3 others. Say it again. Admiral Blackwood demanded. Dr. Park pulled up the linguistic analysis. The invitation uses specific grammatical structures that indicate obligation, not choice. In Galactic Standard, these structures are typically reserved for legal summons, not diplomatic welcomes. Marcus studied the data. He had spent 18 months analyzing fragments of alien communication intercepted from the monitoring probes they had shot down. The patterns were clear. "It is not an invitation," Marcus said. "It is a summons to our own trial." The room fell silent. General Rivera leaned forward. "What are we being tried for?" "Existing," Marcus replied. "Advancing too quickly. Becoming a threat to their established order." Admiral Blackwood stood. "Then we fight. We have been developing weapons specifically for this scenario. Technologies based on reverse-engineered alien tech. We can defend ourselves. Against how many ships?" Marcus asked quietly. "We have 12 combat vessels. Cutting edge. Armed with the Galactic Council controls 17,000 star systems," Marcus interrupted. "Their combined military forces outnumber us billions to one. Even with our new weapons, we cannot win a direct war." Blackwood's jaw clenched. "So we surrender? Accept whatever judgment they pass?" "No," Marcus said. "We use a different strategy." Over the next 3 weeks, Marcus assembled a specialized team. Game theorists, psychologists, historians, cultural analysts. Their mission was simple: find weakness in the Galactic Council. What they discovered was remarkable. The Council was not unified. It was a fragile alliance of competing factions, held together by mutual fear and self-interest. Major powers like the Vethany Collective, the Dominion of Scales, and the Equilibrium Pact had been locked in Cold War for millennia. The only thing that truly united them was suppressing emerging threats. "Humanity is not just on trial," Dr. Park explained. "We are being used as a demonstration, a reminder to younger species of what happens when you rise too quickly." Marcus studied the political map of galactic civilization, alliances, trade agreements, territorial disputes, ancient grudges. The Council maintained peace through careful balance. Any disruption could shatter that balance. "Then we disrupt it," Marcus said. "How?" General Rivera asked. Marcus began outlining his plan. It was insane. It required perfect timing, absolute confidence, and a gamble that could cost 9 billion lives. Admiral Blackwood listened with growing horror. "You want to threaten mutual destruction? Make them fear us more than they fear each other?" "No," Marcus said. "I want to make them realize that destroying us costs more than tolerating us. Force them to see us not as a threat to be eliminated, but as a variable they must accommodate." The team worked day and night, refining the strategy, running simulations, preparing counterarguments. But they all knew success depended on one critical factor. They needed inside information. They needed to know the Council's true intentions. Then, 4 weeks before the trial, Earth's defense satellites detected an object entering the solar system. A small pod transmitting friendly signals. Admiral Blackwood wanted to destroy it. It could be a weapon, a surveillance device, or it could be someone trying to help us, Marcus said. They brought the pod down at a secure military facility in Nevada. Armed soldiers surrounded it as the hatch opened. Counselor Dren Voss stepped out, his 4 arms raised in a gesture of peace. He collapsed immediately. The journey had nearly killed him. When he woke in the medical facility, he found Marcus waiting. "My name is Dren Voss," he said weakly. "I am a member of the Galactic Council, and I am here to warn you." Over the next hours, Dren told them everything. The suppression of human development, the extinction protocol, the prophecy, the thousands of species erased from history. "You are not just another species," Dren explained. You are the species the galaxy has been waiting for, the one that could change everything. And that is exactly why they want to destroy you." Admiral Blackwood paced the room. "Then my recommendation stands. We fight. You cannot win a military conflict," Dren said. "We know," Marcus replied. "That is why we will not fight one." He explained his plan to Dren. The counselor listened, his expression shifting from concern to surprise to something that might have been hope. "It could work," Dren said slowly. "But you are gambling everything on the council's self-interest, outweighing their fear." "People always act in their self-interest," Marcus said. "Even aliens, apparently." "There is another factor," Dren warned. "There are beings at the council who have not spoken in 3,000 years. The silent ones. No one knows why they attend the assemblies. But they have chosen to attend your trial." Marcus felt a chill. Why? No one knows. But their presence changes everything. They observe. They judge. And when they choose to act, the galaxy trembles. The team spent the remaining weeks refining every detail. They built the Prometheus devices, not as real weapons, but as convincing props. They prepared evidence from Dren's files. They rehearsed arguments and counter-arguments. The night before departure, Marcus stood on a balcony overlooking the city. His daughter joined him, placing a small hand in his. "Will you be gone long?" she asked. Marcus thought of the trial ahead, of the extinction that awaited if he failed, of the impossible gamble he was about to make. "Not long," he promised. "I will be home before you know it." She hugged him tight. "Bring me back a star." Marcus smiled, fighting tears. "I will bring you back all of them." The next morning, the human delegation boarded the transport vessel that had arrived to carry them to the council chambers. Marcus wore his dress uniform. His team carried encrypted data files. Their evidence. Their weapons as Earth fell away behind them. Admiral Blackwood stood beside Marcus at the viewing port. "Last chance to change your mind," she said. "Activate the real defense grid. Make them pay for attacking us. And doom our species to endless war?" Marcus shook his head. "No, we either become part of galactic civilization, or we show them why trying to eliminate us was a mistake they will never forget. And if your plan fails?" Marcus looked at her steadily. "Then at least we failed on our own terms. At least we stood and said no. At least we showed them that humanity does not kneel." The ship entered hyperspace, carrying humanity's last hope toward an uncertain fate. Behind them, Earth continued spinning. 9 billion souls, unaware that their survival hung in the balance. Living their lives, loving, dreaming, creating being human and somewhere ahead, in chambers vast beyond imagining. The Galactic Council waited to pass judgment on whether humanity deserved to exist. Marcus Webb had imagined this moment 1,000 times during the journey. None of his imaginings prepared him for the reality. The judgment chamber was beyond comprehension. 3 kilometers of crystalline architecture spiraling upward toward a dome, showing the galaxy in real time. 412 species watching from tiered galleries. The air thick with alien whispers and languages that hurt human ears. High Arbiter Thelvon coiled on his floating throne. 7 appendages moving in patterns that might have been contemplation or threat. Around him sat the most powerful beings in known space. Grand Admiral Corax of the Dominion of Scales, scales gleaming like polished weapons. Matriarch Silith of the Vethany Collective, her insectoid body draped in ceremonial cloth. Representatives from 100 other civilizations and in the highest gallery, barely visible in shadow, sat 3 figures who radiated ancient presence. The Silent Ones. The trial began as Marcus expected. A theatrical display designed to break his spirit. One by one, representatives stood to present evidence against humanity. Their weapons. Their wars. Images of nuclear explosions, cities burning, environmental destruction, species driven to extinction by human activity. They are aggressive, Avethany delegate declared. They wage war on themselves constantly. They poison their own world, added a representative from the Equilibrium Pact. They cannot even protect their homeworld. How can they be trusted with access to the galaxy? They develop weapons of mass destruction as a matter of course, Grand Admiral Corax said, his voice filled with contempt. Their entire culture celebrates violence and conflict. Marcus listened. He did not interrupt. He did not defend. He simply stood in the column of light, hands behind his back, a slight smile on his face. This made them nervous. High Arbiter Thelvan had presided over 17 extinction protocols. Every species had reacted the same way: fear, pleading, desperate arguments. But this human just stood there, watching, as if he knew something they did not. After 3 hours of testimony, Thelvan finally granted Marcus the right to speak. What say you in humanity's defense? The Arbiter demanded. Marcus stepped forward. His voice carried clearly through the chamber. I agree with every accusation you have made. Shocked silence fell. We are violent. We wage war. We have committed atrocities. We have nearly destroyed our own world multiple times. Everything you have said is true. The delegates looked at each other in confusion. This was not how trials proceeded. But Marcus continued, I find it interesting that a council which has secretly interfered with our development for centuries is now judging us for being dangerous. He activated his datapad. Holographic displays filled the chamber. Classified documents, incident reports, records of crashes, abductions, sabotage. 200 years of suppression, Marcus said. Crashed surveillance probes on our soil. Scientists who disappeared mysteriously. Research projects that failed for no apparent reason. You have been manipulating human civilization since before we had electricity. Matriarch Silith rose from her seat. These documents are classified council records. How did you obtain them? Does it matter? Marcus asked. They are authentic. You know they are authentic. The chamber erupted in chaos. Species that had trusted the council began demanding explanations. Grand Admiral Corax attempted to dismiss the evidence as fabrication, but other representatives recognized the authentication codes. Marcus had done what no species had done before. He had turned the trial into an investigation of the judges. But High Arbiter Thelvan was ancient and skilled. He allowed the chaos to continue for exactly the right amount of time. Then he raised an appendage. Silence returned. Regardless of the council's past actions, Thelvan said coldly, the fact remains that humanity's current trajectory poses an unacceptable risk to galactic stability. Your species advances too quickly. You weaponize every discovery. You cannot be trusted with faster-than-light travel. The Arbiter's multiple eyes fixed on Marcus. The extinction protocol will proceed. Does humanity have anything further to say? This was the moment. Everything depended on what happened in the next few minutes. Marcus took a breath. Before you vote, there is one more piece of evidence I would like to present. He activated another display. The Sol system appeared, shown from multiple angles. But now, new objects were visible. Hundreds of them, positioned at strategic points throughout the system. We call them Prometheus devices, Marcus explained calmly. When activated, they will collapse our sun into a black hole. The resulting gravitational disruption will destroy everything within 40 light years. The chamber went absolutely silent. Including, Marcus added, looking directly at the gathered delegates, the 16 council species that have colonies within that radius. For a long moment, no one moved. Then Grand Admiral Corax began to laugh. A harsh reptilian sound that echoed through the chamber. You would destroy yourselves? He said, "This proves our point. You are a mad species, unstable. You have just demonstrated exactly why you must be eliminated." But Marcus shook his head. "You misunderstand, Admiral. We are not threatening to destroy ourselves to avoid judgment. We are demonstrating that we are no longer a species you can eliminate without consequences." He walked slowly around the chamber floor, making eye contact with as many representatives as possible. "Destroy Earth, and you doom 16 of your own civilizations. You will create a black hole in one of the galaxy's most populated regions. The question is no longer whether you can afford to let us live." He stopped, looking up at High Arbiter Thelvon. "The question is whether you can afford to let us die." The chamber descended into pandemonium. Species that had supported the extinction protocol now faced the possibility of their own destruction. Representatives shouted at each other. Ancient alliances began to fracture before Marcus's eyes. Admiral Blackwood's voice crackled in his hidden earpiece. "They are detecting the devices. It is working." But High Arbiter Thelvon did not seem disturbed. Instead, the ancient judge began to laugh, a cold, rattling sound that somehow cut through all the noise. Slowly, silence returned. Everyone turned to stare at the Arbiter. "Clever," Thelvon said. "Very clever. But did you really think we would not anticipate desperation?" The holographic display changed. Now it showed something new. A council fleet, hidden in the void beyond the Sol system. 10,000 warships. Enough firepower to crack a planet. Marcus felt ice in his veins. "We knew you would attempt something," Thelvan continued. "We have been watching you for centuries. Your Prometheus devices have already been neutralized by our technical teams. Your gambit has failed." The Arbiter raised an appendage to call for the final vote. And then, for the first time in 3,000 years, the Silent One spoke. The voice that filled the chamber was like nothing Marcus had ever heard. It seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. It vibrated in his bones. We have watched. Every being in the chamber froze. Even High Arbiter Thelvon coiled back, his serpentine body rigid with what might have been fear. The voice of the Silent Ones filled every corner of the chamber. It did not come through translation devices. It simply existed, understood by all species, simultaneously. Since before your council was formed, since before your species crawled from their birth, oceans, we have watched and waited for the ones who would fulfill the equation. Marcus stood frozen. Every instinct screamed at him to move, to speak, to do something. But his body would not respond. Around him, 412 species sat paralyzed. Even High Arbiter Thelvon could not move. "The Prometheus devices," the voice continued, "they are not why we speak. We speak because for the first time, we have witnessed a species answer the final question correctly." Marcus found his voice. "What is the final question? What will you sacrifice for your survival?" The chamber remained silent, waiting. Every species before you has answered the same way. Nothing. They have pleaded, they have bargained, they have surrendered. But you, humans, you are prepared to destroy everything. Your star, your world, your entire species, rather than allow others to choose your fate. One of the Silent Ones moved forward, stepping into the light for the first time. Its form was impossible to describe. It seemed to shift between states of matter, solid, liquid, energy, all, and none at once. This is not madness. This is the fire that burns at the center of all progress, the willingness to risk everything for the chance to become more. The Council has spent millennia extinguishing this fire wherever IT appears, but you cannot extinguish IT in humanity. IT is not a flaw in their design. IT is their design. High Arbiter Thelvon finally found his voice. Ancient Ones, you cannot mean to allow them. We mean to invoke the right of succession. The chamber exploded into chaos. Marcus heard fragments from shocked delegates. The right of succession was ancient protocol, older than the council itself. It recognized a species that had proven worthy of inheriting galactic governance, that it had never been invoked. Until now, Grand Admiral Corax rose, scales bristling with rage. You cannot give them the galaxy. They are children, barbarians. They would destroy everything we have built. What you have built, the Silent Ones replied, is a prison, a stagnant order, where nitrogen monoxide species is allowed to grow, where all potential is strangled. Before IT can flourish, you have ruled through fear for 12 years. The voice paused. When it continued, it carried weight that made the chamber's crystals vibrate. Your time is ending. Matriarch Silith stepped forward. If not us, then who? You have been silent for 3,000 years. Why speak now? Why choose them? We speak because the equation has been fulfilled. In all our watching, across countless civilizations and endless time, only one species has demonstrated the precise combination of traits required. Adaptability without surrender, strength without cruelty, unity despite diversity, and most importantly, the courage to choose oblivion over subjugation. The Silent Ones turned their incomprehensible gaze on Marcus. We do not give you the galaxy. Human, we give you the chance to earn it. The right of succession grants your species a seat on the council, not as supplicants. BUT as equals. What you do with that opportunity is your choice. Marcus struggled to process what was happening. He had come prepared to die, prepared to trigger a bluff that would take billions with him. And now, there is a condition, the voice added. The Prometheus devices must be deactivated, not because we fear them, but because a species that rules through the threat of annihilation is nitrogen monoxide better than the council. You would replace. You must choose to lead with something other than fear. Marcus thought of his daughter, of every human who had looked at the stars and dreamed, of every war and peace, every act of cruelty and kindness that had brought humanity to this moment. He thought of all the species the council had erased, all the potential destroyed because it threatened the established order. We accept, he said quietly. Then louder, humanity accepts. The chamber erupted again. Half the species shouted in protest. The other half sat in stunned silence. Grand Admiral Corax stormed toward the exit, followed by several Dominion representatives. Other alliances began fracturing in real time, but the Silent Ones simply watched. After a moment, they faded back into shadow. The trial was over. 6 months later, Marcus Webb stood on a balcony overlooking the new Earth spaceport. Ships departed every hour now, carrying humans to distant stars. Diplomats, scientists, merchants, explorers. The galaxy had opened, and humanity poured through. But it was not easy. The Galactic Council had been fractured by the trial. Some species accepted humanity's new status. Others plotted in secret, waiting for humanity to fail. The Dominion of Scales had withdrawn from several treaties. Border skirmishes had increased in remote sectors, and everyone watched Earth with nervous eyes. Marcus had spent the past months establishing humanity's new embassy at the council chambers. He had navigated political meetings with species that hated him, negotiated trade agreements, prevented 3 near wars through careful diplomacy. He was exhausted, but he was also alive. His species was alive, and they had a future. Footsteps approached behind him. Admiral Blackwood joined him at the railing, looking out at the departing ships. The Vethany Collective has lodged another complaint, she said. They claim our mining operations in the Outer Rim violate territorial agreements. Do they? Technically, no. The territory was unclaimed. But we are moving fast, and it makes them nervous. Marcus smiled tiredly. Everything we do makes someone nervous. Is that the future we face? Endless suspicion? Eternal struggle to prove we deserve to exist? Probably, Marcus said. He watched a transport ship rise into the sky, carrying 100 humans toward a colony in the Andromeda sector. But it is better than the alternative. A small hand tugged at his uniform. His daughter looked up at him with bright eyes. Dad, when can I go to space? Marcus knelt beside her. Soon. You can go anywhere you want. That is what we vow. Did you bring me a star? He laughed. I brought you all of them. The whole galaxy. She hugged him tight, then ran off to watch the ships with other children who had gathered at the observation area. Admiral Blackwood watched them go. They do not know how close we came. How close it still is. Good, Marcus said. Let them dream. Let them believe the universe welcomes them. They will learn the truth soon enough. That space is full of species that fear us. That we will struggle for every inch. That being exceptional means being tested constantly. He stood, brushing dust from his uniform. But they will also learn that we do not break. We do not surrender. And we will never, ever let anyone else decide our fate. Far across the galaxy, in the judgment chamber that had witnessed humanity's trial, High Arbiter Thelvan reviewed reports from across council space. Humanity was expanding rapidly. Too rapidly. They were establishing colonies, trade routes, diplomatic relationships. They moved through the galaxy like a force of nature, and they were changing things. Species that had been oppressed under council rule were watching humanity carefully. Some were beginning to question, to demand, to rise. They will destabilize everything, Thelvan muttered to his advisors. The prophecy was correct. They will tear the galaxy apart. But Counselor Drenvos, who had been granted amnesty for his role in saving humanity, offered a different perspective. Or perhaps they will rebuild it into something better, he said. Something that does not require species to suppress their potential in order to survive. Thelvan coiled tighter around his throne. You believe they can unite the galaxy? I believe they can force us to choose. Between the prison we have built and the possibility of something more. Deep in the shadow of the highest gallery, the Silent Ones watched and waited. The equation had been fulfilled. Humanity had proven themselves. Now came the true test. Could they change galactic civilization without becoming what they had opposed? Only time would tell. But for the first time in 12,000 years, the galaxy's future was uncertain. And uncertainty meant possibility. The age of stagnation was ending. The age of humanity had begun.